Today, we're diving into the most incredible instruction manual you can possibly imagine. It's the blueprint that literally built you from scratch. And guess what? A copy of it is sitting inside almost every single cell in your body right now.
Just think about that for a second. Deep inside trillions of your cells, from the ones in your brain to the tip of your big toe, there is a master plan, a detailed blueprint that doesn't just decide the color of your eyes, but also directs the minute-by-minute operations of your entire body.
So the big question is, how does this microscopic scroll of code actually turn into, well, you? How on earth do your cells read this thing and follow its directions to build everything from the enzymes digesting your lunch to the very muscles of your heart? That's the amazing story we're going to unpack right now. So our journey begins in the command center of the cell, a place called the nucleus. You can think of it like a super secure vault where the master plan is kept safe. And that master plan, that blueprint of life, has a name you probably know: DNA.
Deoxyribonucleic acid. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but the molecule itself is surprisingly simple and unbelievably powerful. Picture a super long ladder that's been twisted into a spiral. That's it. That's DNA. It is the ultimate instruction manual, with every single piece of information needed to build and run you.
Now, the rungs of that ladder are made from 4 chemicals: A, T, G, and C. But they follow a very simple, very strict, unbreakable rule. A always hooks up with T, and G always hooks up with C. That's it. This perfect, predictable pairing is the secret sauce for how DNA can be copied so darn accurately. And here's where it gets really clever. The cell doesn't read individual letters. Nope, it reads in 3-letter words called triplets. So a word like GGC or AGA is a specific instruction, and it usually tells the cell which building block, called an amino acid, to grab next.
Okay, so we've got this master blueprint, the DNA, locked away safely in the nucleus. But the actual construction site where all the building happens is way out in the main part of the cell. So how do you get the plans from the architect's office out to the construction crew on the ground?
Well, it's a 2-step process. First up is transcription. This is basically where the cell makes a quick, disposable copy of a small part of the master blueprint. Then comes translation. That's when the copy is taken to a cellular factory and used to actually assemble the final product.
And that working copy is a slightly different molecule called RNA. It's a close cousin to DNA, but with a few key differences. For one, it's single-stranded, not a double helix, which makes it more flexible. And here's a crucial detail. Instead of the letter T, RNA uses a letter called U, or uracil. So wherever the DNA has an A, the RNA copy will have a U.
So let's look at step 1, transcription. This incredible little machine, an enzyme called RNA polymerase, clamps onto the DNA, it zips down the strand, unwinding the double helix just a little bit, reading the code, and building that complementary copy, which we call messenger RNA, or mRNA for short.
The big idea here is all about transferring information safely. The master plan, the DNA, it never leaves the vault. It's way too precious. Instead, that precious code is just transcribed onto a cheap, disposable mRNA molecule. That mRNA can then carry the instructions out to the bustling, chaotic factory floor of the cell.
All right, once our little mRNA messenger is made, it slips out of the nucleus and heads out into the main part of the cell. Its destination? A tiny but mighty structure called a ribosome. This is our construction site. This is where the magic happens.
And at this construction site, we have a whole crew ready to go. The mRNA, of course, is the working blueprint with all the instructions. The ribosome is the factory itself, the machinery that reads the blueprint. Then we have these little guys called transfer RNA, or tRNA. Think of them as delivery trucks. Each tRNA truck carries one specific type of building material, an amino acid, and is designed to recognize just one of those 3-letter words on the mRNA.
So, with all this copying and building and delivering, what is the cell actually making? What's the final product? The answer is proteins. Proteins are the workhorses of your body. They're the end result of this entire incredible process.
And proteins do, well, pretty much everything. Some are structural. They're the literal beams and scaffolding that give a cell its shape, but the vast majority of proteins are enzymes. You can think of them as tiny machines that make almost every chemical reaction in your body happen, from breaking down your food to generating energy.
And get this, here's a little twist. That construction site we talked about, the ribosome,
What's it made of? It's actually built from a mix of RNA and, you guessed it, proteins. So the machine that builds proteins is itself made of proteins. It's a beautiful, self-perpetuating system. How cool is that?
Okay, so we've seen how a cell uses its blueprint in its day-to-day life. But what happens when it's time for that cell to multiply and divide into two? Well, it has to make a perfect, complete copy of the entire master plan for the new cell. A cell actually spends more than 95% of its life in a prep phase called interphase. During this whole time, it's just growing, doing its job, and taking on the gigantic task of copying its entire library of DNA. All of that work leads up to the grand finale, mitosis. This is the fast and furious division process that creates two brand new cells.
The way it copies DNA is just genius. The double helix unwinds, and each of the original strands is used as a template to build a new partner strand. The result is two new DNA molecules, but each one is half old and half new. This semi-conservative method is just a beautiful, elegant way to make sure the copy is as accurate as possible.
But, nobody's perfect. With billions and billions of letters to copy, sometimes mistakes happen. An error in the DNA sequence, basically a typo in the blueprint, is what we call a mutation.
So what causes these typos? It could be all sorts of things. External stuff, like too much UV light from the sun or chemicals from cigarette smoke, can damage the DNA. But honestly, sometimes, even with all the cell's proofreading systems working overtime, it just comes down to simple random chance, a copying error.
Now, a lot of these mutations are totally harmless, but if a typo happens in a really critical gene, like one that controls when a cell divides, the consequences can be catastrophic. This is the fundamental origin of cancer. A cell's blueprint gets damaged, and it forgets how to stop dividing. It loses its off switch.
You see, normal cells have a built-in ticking clock. At the tips of our chromosomes are these little protective caps called telomeres. Think of them like the plastic tips on your shoelaces. They get a little shorter every time a cell divides. When they get too short, the cell just stops dividing and retires. But cancer cells have found a way to cheat death. They switch on an enzyme that rebuilds their telomeres, which basically makes them immortal and allows them to divide forever.
So there you have it. From a simple four-letter alphabet, the entire magnificent complexity of a human being is built. It's a code that is read, copied, and put into action with mind-boggling precision billions of times a second inside of us. And that leaves us with one final profound question. We've finally learned how to read the blueprint of life. So what happens now that we're starting to learn how to rewrite it?